Greetings, it is of course Dr. Jimmy again. Hello, and today I'm wearing a Ghostbusters t-shirt. It's sort of purple, although I don't know if it quite shows on this, the light. It looks black, but it's actually bright purple. Same colour as the Orlando City Soccer Club, yes, but Ghostbusters instead. Anyway, you might remember I recently posted a video where I revealed an entire Halloween Horror Nights event, but not for here in the United States, but in Japan. Well, guess what? There's been another major reveal for a Halloween Horror Night event, but not here in the United States, but in Singapore. Universal Studios Singapore Halloween Horror Night 6, in fact. Major reveal. I will not begin this in another language, though. I did give a Japanese greeting in the previous one, but the only language spoken in Singapore that I can speak is English. I can't speak Chinese, but I do know a couple of words of Mandarin, you know, basic things like ni hao, which means hello, and jie jie, which means thank you, and pi zhou, which means beer. Very important to know how to say beer, so when you're ordering in a bar, you know, give me a beer, please. They know beer. Oh, and if you're there in February, like I was, I learned Xinyan Kuai, which means Happy New Year. But it doesn't make any sense to learn that if you're not there during the Lunar New Year. So that's about it for my Mandarin. Not very good either. If you mispronounce it, you can say something completely different, because Chinese is one of those tonal languages. So if you just, you know, in English, the only tonal things we have is like questions. For example, you can say really or really, and it means two different things. One is, you know, really, and you can answer that by saying really. And, you know, you say the same word, but it changes the meaning by the tone, right? You know, correct? But it's really still the same word. In Chinese, though, you can change the tone and take a word that's two letters, M-A, ma, right? You can say ma, 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 or ma. And it means, I don't know which is which, but I think it means mother, no, horse, and rope. So just depending on how you say the ma, it can mean mother or horse. You know, it'd be very embarrassing if you call your mother a horse. Or even worse, if you call a horse your mother. I can get all kinds of horsing around the most edible way. Ooh. Enough of that. Never really was a linguist, and definitely not a cunning one. Let's not go there. Why do I go there? I don't know. But yesterday morning there was a wonderful reveal, as I was saying. Now, a few weeks ago, the website for the event from last year, Halloween Horror Nights 5, at Universal Studios Singapore, which had the whole blood moon and paper servants and the hell house and the hungry ghosts and all sorts of things, aliens, the alien horde, all sorts of wonderful stuff, mostly original. They had one IP which was based on a series of horror novels written by Russell Lee, who no one's ever heard of in the United States, but he writes the true Singapore ghost stories. And so they had one house based on his work, except it wasn't based on any particular book. He wrote a whole new story just for Halloween Horror Nights. So it was still original. Might have had a couple characters from his stories, but still it was an original story by Russell Lee. It would be like if Stephen King wrote a new story just for a house for Horror Nights that had nothing to do with any of his previous books. That would give you an idea of what happened with that last year. That was the closest thing to an IP they've ever done. It's the most original Horror Night event going. It's amazing. And I really like what they do there. I wish I could get there and see it. But that was last year. So the Blood Moon thing was gone. And there was a teaser. It was all black, and there was like sort of white energy going into what looked like a black hole in the middle, sort of being sucked in there. And it said, do you dare face the darkness within? Which immediately made me think of legendary truth, beware the evil within, right? I said, what's this, the darkness within? So that happens, and then there's a little counter at the bottom, and it was something like 40 days. This was several weeks ago, and it's counting down. every day, a lower number. Oh, exciting every day. Now it's 20. Now it's going to be 15. Oh, good, it's getting closer and closer. And so we figured it would be right around July 27th when the whole thing would go. And it's just so many days till darkness reigns. Okay, and then they teased us. They teased us a couple of weeks later with a picture they showed on Twitter, and this one showed it was a reflection picture. It was sort of upside down, like in a broken mirror, a reflection of a woman's face with like pale white and black hair and maybe blood. And it was like, who's that? Is that Bloody Mary? Is Bloody Mary going to be in Singapore? Or maybe because Bobby Wiener's copyright's only for the United States, right? So they could do that. Oh, is that how they bring Bloody Mary back by putting her in Singapore? Ooh, that's exciting. So that's what we thought at first, because it was a strange image. Then recently they tweeted a picture of a mirror too, a mirror, and then they had a video just a couple like last week. Suddenly changed a little subtly on the website. Instead of saying so many days till darkness reigns, it said so many days till evil rises. Ooh, what does that mean? And then there was this little video, and it shows this young man, blonde, a white guy, a Caucasian, strangely enough, but he's in this big mansion or something, a beautiful ornate room with lots of nice furniture and things, ornamentation, and he sees this beautiful antique mirror, and it's all kind of dusty, and so he starts to clean the dust off the mirror, and as he does that, suddenly his face is not there, and there's this woman, this sort of dark hair with like jewels on her forehead and weird black makeup, and then fangs, big pointy fangs, and he's like, and then suddenly she reaches through the mirror and pulls him into the other side. It's got, oh fuck, he gets pulled in the other side. Then it cuts away, there's some information, then it cuts back and it shows him in this dark other world, and there's not one but three of these witches grabbing and pulling at him. He's like, ah! And so that was like a little teaser video. It says, oh my god, what is this darkness within? It seems a bit Bloody Mary-ish, but or a mirror as another world on the other side of the mirror. Who is that woman? She doesn't quite look like our Bloody Mary, but maybe they're changing it up, right? I could use a Bloody Mary this time of the morning. Yeah, that's the acceptable alcohol at 9 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. So, what was that going to be? So again, we watch as the clock comes down, counts down, and yesterday the 26th, because hey, Singapore's on the other side of the international date line, so it was already the 27th. That's right. Suddenly, there's two more videos appear on the Resort World Sentosa, which owns Universal Studios Singapore, or co-owns it, on their YouTube channel. Two videos. They're basically the same video, but one's a shorter version, the other's a longer version, and it expands on that teaser. Now the young man, except he's now an Asian young man, so they switched the cast. And so there's an Asian young man now, and he's in that same room, and he goes to that mirror, and he gets, but instead of going into that first world when he gets pulled through, he finds himself in this strange, like, food market like you would have in Singapore, and like in a street food market, where they're hawking food, right? And it's like Uncle Lou's or someone's, food stand. But the guy comes out and he's got like, creepy face, and there's like maybe zombie-like. He's got a big cleaver, comes after him, trying to hack the boy with the cleaver, chasing this. It's clearly they're not selling normal food, they're like selling bits and pieces of human flesh. They're like, this is a cannibal food market. So he's trying to get out of that, and suddenly he's in a different room, and it's like a hospital. It's all dark and spooky, and there's all these gurneys with sheets, and obviously bodies on sheets, like dead, like he's in a morgue, and like the hands are flopping out from underneath, and it's like, oh, they're going to come to life, and it goes into another room, and he's in a beautiful Asian restaurant or inn, a parlor, whatever, maybe a bordello, whatever it is. It's all very pretty, set up like a bar, and there's like a hostess there, and she's this beautiful woman, and she's got this lovely stole with several white tails of this stole that she's wearing around her neck, and she's in Chinese dress, and she's very ornate and beautiful, and he's like, oh, hey, hi, sweetie. And then suddenly one of the tails is tapping his shoulder from behind. It reaches around. How did that happen? And he turns around, and now her face is this weird beast with pointy ears, right? A little cute little pony, has white fur and fangs, kind of growling and snarling at him. A little bit cute, but still scary. Remember Michael Jackson in Thriller? Only, so I thought, at first I thought it might be some sort of cat lady, but then I discovered what she was. I realized it. Oh my God, it's a fox. This is a fox woman, a vixen, and it has to do with Chinese legends. And I'll get to that soon. So that was that scene, and then the last bit. I think he's in another dark place, the same place that we saw in the first teaser, where various witch-like creatures are pulling at him and tearing him. And he's trapped in that place, can't get through the mirror again. So it's like, this is exciting. They've got all kinds of nifty themes, obviously, for the haunted houses and scare zones. What's it going to be? Oh my goodness, it just stirred up the excitement. Oh, there was a face at the end. A beautiful woman, but not the one we saw at the beginning. This one doesn't look Asian at all. She looks more Mexican. It looks like those Dia de la Muertos figures. But a beautiful woman with a skull face. It's all ornamented, and the hair with the roses and a skull in it. It looks just like sort of Doña Muerta figures, you know, or the Santa Muerta figures, some of them. Some of them are more skeletal, but if you know the Mexican folk art for the Day of the Dead, they often do this beautiful woman with the roses and the skulls in her hair, with all the ornate. Rebecca Del Rio once did a record album with that sort of image on her face. So it's there was an animated cartoon about Day of the Dead sort of thing recently. I forget what it's called, Book of Life, I think, where they had a figure like that, La Muerta. So it's a similar idea, you know. It says death is a feminine noun, I believe, in Spanish. So it does sort of look like that kind of figure. So it's unusual to see that in Singapore, although there might have been some Spanish influences from sailors and the Portuguese sailors. I don't know enough about the city, but it's mostly, I believe, Malay and Chinese. The large Chinese population, of course, but there's also Malay and other cultures. There's Christians and Buddhists and Muslims and all sorts of different Hindus, also all living in the same city. So there's a lot of combination of religion and culture. You know, and if you go to Universal Studios Singapore, they have prayer rooms set up for Muslim guests, because, you know, they have to give their prayers 5 times a day. So they have them set up for them, so if they're at the park, they don't have to, you know, wait till the end of the night and do all the prayers at once, which sometimes they do. If it's busy and you don't have a chance to pray during the day, you can do them all at once at the end of the night. So you go through all 5 prayer cycles at once. You can't do them in advance. That's cheating, apparently. Although I've heard some more secular Muslims say they have, but I think you're allowed to do it at the end of the night. That way you can go through your regular course of the day. But if you're on an airplane or something, or you're doing something else and you don't have a chance, you know, to do it at the 5 usual times, which I think are like breakfast and lunch, and well, that's not exactly right, but it's like in the morning and at night and in the afternoon and at noon or whatever. There's 5 times a day. They're supposed to, but they have it set up for convenience because there is a large Muslim population in Singapore, because they have a multicultural city. Although the predominant culture, I think, is Chinese, at least as far as language is concerned. All the signs seem to be in English and Chinese characters. The website, I believe, is in Chinese and English, depending on which one you click on. So, enough digression. Tease was there this morning. It was exciting. But then, of course, the website went live. And oh my God, it's like those old websites we used to have for Horror Nights in Orlando, which are interactive and tease the event slowly over a period of time. And also have games, interactive games you can play. In this case, there's a contest involved. It's rather nifty. First of all, the icon is revealed on the first page. That beautiful woman I mentioned, with the sort of Mexican La Muerta look. They didn't identify her by name on the website itself, but they also had a press release yesterday, and it got to all the major blogs and for Singapore, including the best one, I think, is deadjiki.com. That's DEJIKI.com. Nicholas Yao runs that. He's really good. He's followed this event for years, and he's covered it. One of the best online resources to finding out about Universal Studios Singapore having Horror Nights. So I highly recommend Dejiki.com. He also does other attractions in the Singapore area, and I think in other parts of Asia as well. So it's really a nifty website, and I highly recommend it. So that's my shout out to Nicholas Yao and Dejiki.com. But also the Lady Death is her name. She's the icon for the event. Yes, they have an icon this year. Singapore has had icons every year except last year. Last year they had the Blood Moon. So they've had original icon. They had a director the first year, but it was not the same director we have over here. It was a completely different character. And so they've had original icons every single year. And except for the one train-themed house, the MRT house they had last year, all the houses have been completely original, no IPs. It's the most original Horror Night event ever. It's quite awesome. I don't think they've had any IPs at all. They have had Jack the Clown show up occasionally to do shows. He had a house and a show in 2014. He's doing another show this year, so he's going back over there, but we'll get to that. So, we've got Lady Death is the name of the icon. She will be the icon for the event. That's exciting because now we have an icon again. They had icons 4 years running. Then they didn't have one last year. Now they have another icon. We had the Puppet Master. They had the three sisters, the three evil sisters. Then they had the Minister of Horror. Now they have Lady Death. And it's a female icon. So there's 2 icons at Horror Nights this year at 2 different Horror Night events. Japan doesn't use them. Hollywood hasn't been using them for years. But Orlando and Singapore both have icons, and they're both women. Yeah, girl power. This is really an empowerment year for women. We have Hillary Clinton nominated to run for president. We've got, it's pretty exciting. So it's a good year for strong women, and we have two amazing icons happening in 2 different parts of the world. Lady Death in Singapore and Chance here in the United States. Wow. Now, on the site itself, only one of the 5 haunted houses. They've gone to 5 haunted houses, by the way. Last year they only had 4. They've dropped down to only 2 scare zones. However, I think it's because they're doing something else in the streets this year, which is quite exciting. So they've got 2 scare zones and 5 haunted houses, and it's running for 16 nights, which is the most nights ever for Singapore. And it starts in September, on September 30th, which is the earliest date ever for Singapore. It always started October before. So they've expanded their event. It's still a lot smaller than the ones here in Orlando and Hollywood, but it's been getting bigger every year. Eventually it'll be as big as ours, I'm sure. Quite exciting. So they've got all of this stuff getting ready, but they only revealed one house on the website, the Old Changi Hospital, which is an actual hospital in Singapore. The Old Changi Hospital was a hospital that was built by the British back in the way, originally as a Royal Air Force, a Royal Air Force hospital, way back in the early part of the 20th century, when the British were still running Singapore back then. But during World War II, the Japanese conquered it and took over it, and the Japanese secret police used it as a interrogation, headquarters, and they would torture people horribly there. Horrible crimes and atrocities were committed by the Japanese in that space. And so after it became old and abandoned, that, of course, all sorts of stories, legends began to circulate. The place is haunted, creepy, and it's like the most haunted place in Singapore. It's got all the scary ghost stories. There have been all kinds of documentaries, some of them fake documentaries, ghost watch type, things, ghost hunters type things, where they go in, movies about the hospital. So it's got a lot of, it's like, this is the spooky place, this is the scary place. And there's supposed to be ghosts of the people who were tortured by the Japanese, and ghosts of old soldiers, like the Japanese soldiers and British soldiers, and they might be trying to kill each other because they're still at war in their own afterworld, and all kinds of that sort of stuff will be in this haunted house, kind of creepy and horrible. So that sounds rather exciting. And they revealed part of it through an online game. They have one coming up so often, I think, for all the haunted houses, and there's prizes. This one You find yourself on a virtual thing going through the hospital. It's really dark, and you're trying to find clues, but the spirits that sometimes come out at you. But you find the clues, and then you try to put together the name of the spectre. It's really hard because the letters don't seem to make any sense. I have tried 2 or 3 times and I haven't got it yet. And as you get down to the last couple letters, trying to put out the name, she appears and she starts turning around if you keep making mistakes, and then she gets you. It's like, ah! And so you have to try it over again. It's really a fun game, but I haven't figured it out. And I think maybe the name, the reason it doesn't make sense is because maybe it's scrambled. It sort of forms a name, but if it's scrambled, it has to be rearranged after you get the right letters. That might explain it. I hadn't thought of that. That might be why you have a weird consonant in the middle of a name that doesn't make any sense, even if it isn't in English. So I'm trying to figure it out. Haven't figured it out yet. Sometimes these games are hard, and that's good. You know, it's not a game you can solve easily. I've tried 2 or 3 times and I haven't got it yet. So they're challenging games, so that's fun. I'm already past 20 minutes and haven't got to the rest. I haven't got to the rest of it, so I'll just quickly go through it. Hell, I'll go 25 minutes. I think I can do that. This will be my longest video yet. So let's go on with it. Now, because of the press release, I learned about the other haunted houses, even though it wasn't revealed on the website yet. They're going to reveal them slowly over the next few weeks. The next reveal will be on Friday, the 29th, which actually would be the 28th, because it's the other side of the international date line. Yay! Right? And that would be, I don't know which one. And they're going to be probably some sort of fun game to play there too, because there's 5 houses. However, the press release did reveal the houses. And of course the video kind of gives some of them away too. So the next one is called Bodies of Work. Now, Bodies of Work, I'm not quite sure exactly what that means. There's a little blurb talking about bodies being put back together in bad ways through rituals, and some sort of dark rituals involving body parts. Sound like mad experiments, but the word ritual suggests black magic. You know, they talk about work. Well, work can be like, you know, a work of the dark arts. I'm not quite sure what that is. That's the most mysterious, because it's just a little blurb. The Salem Witch House, that's pretty self-evident. We know who the Salem witches were. Apparently this time the witches get the upper hand over the people who are persecuting them. Then we have Hu Li's Inn. Now, you might not know what that means, but in Chinese you would know Hu Li Jing. Hu Li Jing is a fox demon. It's sort of like the kitsune of Japan, except the kitsune of Japan, which kitsune just means fox, by the way, but kitsune spirits in Japan are usually benevolent. They can be tricksters. They can be tricksters, but they're usually benevolent in association with the rice god Inari. And you know, they have shrines to them in Tokyo. I saw a beautiful shrine. I didn't even realize what it was at first. I should have, considering professor of religion and all. And I tried to remember my Japanese, and I said, "Kore wa nan desu ka, kono inu?" Which was like, "What is this dog?" And they said, "No, inu arimasen. Kitsune desu." Oh, fox. Then I realized, of course, it's a fox shrine. Yes, the sculpture looked like a dog, that's all. It didn't look like a fox. That's why it fooled me. That was in Tokyo, I think. When did I go to Tokyo last? 2002? Bloody hell, it's been years. Anyway. Getting back to Singapore. Hu Li Jing is not quite the kitsune, because they're usually less benevolent. They can be, but they're more, you know, they're more morally ambiguous. They're more, and a lot of them tend to eat human flesh. Let's put it that way. They're also recognized because they have nine tails. They don't just have one tail. Remember the lady with the first toe? That was the Hu Li Jing. So she is, you know, a white fox vixen woman. That's what she was. With a white fur, like an Arctic fox, I guess. But foxes can come in white and black and red, not just, you know. What does the fox say? I'm going to eat your face, apparently. Yeah. You know, we had a fox girl in Florida, of course, and what did that fox say? I want your candy, yes. But here, we've got a completely different fox girl, and she's not very rosy. No, not at all. There's a different fox girl at all. She's Hu Li Jing is also used as an insult in Singapore and other parts of China to mean like slut, or you know, a woman who breaks up your family. You know, someone who's the adulterous female, like, you know, sort of like the bad girl who's like sleeping with your husband and causing a home wrecker. So I use that word to denounce her, call her a Huli Jing, you are a dirty fox trying to break up our family, you whore, that kind of comment. And in this particular inn, they take that literally, obviously. So it seems quite interesting. A man-eater, yes, in more than one way. So then we have the last house is called Hawker Center Massacre, and it sort of ties into the location of the block. The 50 block house maze they did last year, which is sort of like estate, or no, that's a British word. What's the English word? Projects. You know, the projects, the economic housing for lower income people who can't afford to live in decent. They make the project buildings like they have in inner cities and stuff, and they call them estates in Britain. They have the Sentosa block that they had, whatever it was. That's not it. What was it called? Whatever it was, they had a house based on a zombie outbreak there, and this is like just in the same neighborhood. Apparently, there is a hawker's market where they sell food on the streets. You know, you get that in Asia a lot. Where they have all kinds of food, and sometimes it's wonderful, actually. You know, they chop up the meat and cook it up and all that stuff. Except this one, the chopping up isn't pork, it isn't chicken. Yeah, it's you. So that's the Hawker's Market Massacre, Hawker Center Massacre. Scare zones. Now this is the mystery part, because they had a great reveal of all this information, but they left something to the imagination. They left some mystery for us. They did not reveal the scare zones, except there will be 2 of them. We know that, and where they are on the map, although I'm not familiar enough with the park to know where they are. They usually have one in Egypt and one in New York on the Sting Alley area. I don't know what they're going to do this year, so there's two scare zones, and we have to wait and find out what they are. They've had wonderful scare zones in the past with demons and alien science fiction spacecraft. They've had New York in ruins. They've had all kinds of incredible stuff in scare zones. So they're usually quite elaborate and beautiful. So I'm excited to find out what they are. And 2 shows, or really 1 show and a parade! Yes, the second show will be a parade. We've had parades here in Orlando years ago, the Festival of the Living Dead, although one year it was called Nightmares on Parade in 2001 because they didn't want to talk about dead too much after 9/11. But the parade ran here for many years and then stopped. The last time they ever did it was 2004, back when they had the 2-park thing going on. So we missed the parade very badly over here. We'd like to see it come back someday, although it seems logistically impossible. But over there, they're starting a parade for the first time. So that's one of their shows. And the other show features a face we know oh too well. The face of Horror Nights here in Orlando for years, and he's also appeared occasionally in Hollywood and maybe in Spain, as I saw him on the cover of a brochure for the first Halloween event they had back in 2001, I think, at what was then called Universal Studios Port Aventura in Barcelona. For 4 years they had something like Horror Nights in Spain. I count them as Horror Nights because Universal ran them, and Jack was there. Apparently he was on the advertising for the first one. The caretaker was there for 2 years, and the mental patient from the artwork for Halloween Horror Nights 14 was actually the icon and in the park in 2004 over there in Spain. And then after that they sold the park, and they still do Halloween over there, but it's no longer Horror Nights because we're not involved. Universal was not involved in putting it on anymore. So, but for 4 years, I consider those 4 events in Spain to be Horror Nights personally. That's why I say at the end of this year there'll be 60 events. Jack was in there. Jack was over there once, I think, because I have seen his face on some artwork for what they did over there, brochures and posters, and he was in Hollywood definitely, and of course he's been in Orlando often, all the time. And now he's back in his box, accordingly. He's in Jack in the Box, and so Chance is on her own, apparently. Except, no, he's not really back in his box. He went to Singapore, because he's doing a show at Universal Studios Singapore Halloween Horror Night 6. He's doing a show called, I I think it's called Jack's Recurring Nightmare Circus. Yes, it's Recurring Nightmare Circus. It was a show he did, a Nightmare Circus show, about 2 years ago in 2014, which was a very strange show. It's available on YouTube. You can watch it, and it gets kind of weird a couple of times. It's a very different from the Carnival of Carnage, and yet there are some similarities. And there's a Chance-like character, but it's not Chance, and some other strange little characters that Jack hangs out with, like a creepy little girl and some circus freaks. And whether or not they'll come back, for this year's show, if it be the same show or very different, we'll have to wait and see. So Jack will be back in Singapore at least. Okay, that's the reveal that I was able to get just about the whole event, except those 2 mysterious scare zones. And I might keep you posted as more is revealed. I went for a half hour. I don't know if this will even go up at YouTube. I think a half-hour video, I'm allowed to do that YouTube nowadays. We'll see. I've never done one. Alrighty then. Till later, stop to Jimmy and have fun.